Hello, and welcome to Tea and Tarot. I'm your host, Em. In this podcast, we dive into the world of tarot each week, along with a cup of tea. Some weeks, we dive into reading, others into the cards themselves, and some we explore learning about tarot. This week, let's dive into tarot and psychology. Before we start discussing our topic this week, let me introduce my tea. Oolong tea offers a perfect balance between green and black teas, with a rich, complex flavor. Its toasty, slightly sweet notes create a delightful experience with each sip. I love its versatility, as it can be enjoyed both hot and iced. This tea is a true gem, bringing a unique depth to my tea collection. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait a minute, isn't tarot all about fortune telling and mystical stuff? What's psychology got to do with it? Well, you'll be surprised at how these two seemingly different worlds overlap. So, let's spill the tea. First things first, let's talk about psychology. You know those ink blot tests that you see in movies? The ones where the therapist shows you a weird blob and asks you what you see. Well, those are real things. They're called projective tests, and psychologists have been using them for ages to peek into our subconscious minds. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Tarot cards? They're not so different from those ink blot tests. Both show us ambiguous images that we then interpret based on our own experiences and feelings. It's like looking at clouds and seeing shapes, except instead of fluffy bunnies, we're seeing the fool or the lovers. But here's the real kicker. Some therapists are actually using tarot cards in their practice. Can you believe it? They're not using them to predict the future or anything like that. Instead, they're using the cards as a tool for self-exploration and insight. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're feeling stuck in a situation, maybe a job you don't love or a relationship that's hit a rough patch. You pull a card and boom, it's the Eight of Cups. Now this card often represents walking away from something that no longer serves you. Suddenly, you might start thinking about your situation in a whole new way. It's like the card has given you permission to consider options you hadn't before. That's the power of tarot in therapy. It can offer fresh perspectives and help us see our blind spots. It's like having a friend who always tells it like it is, but in a way that makes you go, instead of ouch. But wait, there's more. I've always wanted to say that. The imagery in tarot cards is incredibly rich and metaphorical. It's like a visual language that speaks directly to our subconscious. When we're struggling to put our feelings into words, sometimes looking at a card can help us express what's going on inside. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you might pull the Ten of Wands. Seeing that figure struggling under the weight of all those sticks can be a powerful way to acknowledge and understand your own feelings of burden. Now, I'm not saying tarot is a substitute for therapy, or that it's backed by tons of scientific research. It's not. But for some people, it can be a really helpful tool for self-reflection and personal growth. One of the coolest things about using tarot this way is that it can be really empowering. Instead of relying on someone else to interpret cards for you, you can learn to read them yourself. It's like having a personal toolkit for self-exploration that you can use whenever you need it. Of course, there are some psychological factors at play here too. Have you ever heard of the placebo effect? It's when believing something will help actually makes it help, even if the thing itself doesn't do anything. With tarot, sometimes just the act of taking time to reflect and consider different perspectives can be beneficial, regardless of what the cards say. There's also something called narrative psychology, which is all about how we use stories to make sense of our lives. Tarot readings are essentially a way of creating narratives about our experiences. By weaving these stories, we can gain new insights and understandings about ourselves and our situations. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical, and you know what? That's absolutely okay. Tarot isn't for everyone, and it's certainly not a substitute for professional help if you're dealing with serious issues. In fact, let me make this crystal clear here. If you're struggling with mental health concerns, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional. Your well-being is too important to leave it to chance, or cards for that matter. But if you're curious about using tarot for self-exploration and personal growth, I've got some tips that might help you dip your toes in the water. 1. Start with an open mind. There's no need to believe in anything mystical or supernatural. Just approach it as a tool for reflection. Think of the cards as conversation starters with yourself. They're prompts for introspection, not fortune-telling devices. 2. Choose a deck that resonates with you. There are so many beautiful decks out there. It can be overwhelming. But find one that speaks to you. Maybe you're drawn to traditional imagery, or perhaps you prefer something more modern and abstract. There are decks themed around nature, animals, different cultures, you name it. The important thing is that the imagery sparks something in you. 3. Start simple. Don't feel like you need to do complex spreads right off the bat. Try pulling a single card each day and reflecting on how it might relate to your life. You could ask, what energy do I need to focus on today? Or what do I need to know right now? Then spend a few minutes considering how the card's imagery and traditional meaning might apply to your current situation. 4. Journal about your readings. Writing can help you process your thoughts and insights. You don't need to write a novel. Even a few bullet points can be helpful. Jot down which card you've pulled, your initial reaction, and any thoughts or feelings that came up as you reflected on it. Over time, you might start to see patterns or themes emerging. 5. Remember, you're in charge of your interpretation. There are no wrong answers in tarot. While there are traditional meanings associated with each card, what matters most is what the card means to you in that moment. 6. Be patient with yourself. Learning tarot takes time, and that's okay. Don't expect to memorize all 78 card meanings overnight. Allow yourself to learn gradually and enjoy the process. 7. Use tarot as a complement to other self-care practices. Maybe you combine your daily tarot pull with meditation, or use tarot imagery as a prompt for creative writing or art. Find ways to integrate it into your existing self-care routine. 8. Connect with others if you're comfortable. There are lots of online communities where people discuss tarot and share their experiences. Sometimes hearing others' perspectives can deepen your own understanding. 9. Stay grounded. Remember, tarot is a tool for insight, not a crystal ball. Use it to gain perspective on your current situation and possible paths forwards, not to try and predict exact future events. 10. Most importantly, have fun with it. Exploring tarot should be an enjoyable experience. If it ever starts feeling like a chore or causing stress, take a step back and reassess. So there you have it, the surprising connection between tarot and psychology. Who knew those 78 cards could be such powerful tools for self-discovery? Whether you're a long-time tarot enthusiast or a curious newcomer, I hope this episode has given you some food for thought about how tarot can be used as a tool for personal growth and self-exploration. Remember, at the end of the day, tarot is just one of many tools we can use to better understand ourselves and our world. It's not about predicting the future or uncovering hidden truths. It's about prompting reflection, sparking insight, encouraging personal growth. And in my book, anything that helps us understand ourselves a little better is worth exploring. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Have you used tarot for self-exploration? What was your experience like? Drop me a comment or reach out on social media. I always love hearing your thoughts and stories. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please do subscribe or find me on social media. And if you have any questions you want to learn about tarot, drop me a message and I'll see if I can add it to a future episode. I hope to see you again next week. Until then, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep learning.